Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Times and Transcript Rogers CV presentation of the local campaign candidate debate for the riding of Beauséjour. I'm your moderator, Gilles Allain, and we are live from the Rogers studio in Moncton, New Brunswick. This afternoon's debate will focus on federal issues as the people select a new member of parliament in the federal election on Monday, October 19th. The order of the candidates has been determined by draw prior to the airing of this program. And the order of candidates is as follows, from my left to your right. From the Green Party, Kevin King. From the Liberal Party, Dominic LeBlanc. Conservative candidate, NDP candidate, Hélène Boudreau. And the Conservative candidate, Anne Bastarache. This afternoon, we have two panelists who will be asking questions of our candidates. Please welcome Tara Clough from Acadia Broadcasting 91.9 The Bend here in Moncton, and Rod Allen from Moncton's daily newspaper, Times and Transcript. The rules of the debate are as follows. Each candidate will begin with a 30-second introduction opening statement. Then the first candidate will be posed a question from one of our panelists. The candidate will have 60 seconds to respond. Each of the remaining candidates will also have 60 seconds to provide a rebuttal response. After all candidates have commented, there will be a 2-minute moderated discussion on the question. All candidates are encouraged to participate in this discussion. At the end of the debate, each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for their closing statements. The closing statements will be delivered in reverse order of the opening statements. So let us begin this afternoon with our first question. Rod Allen of the Times and Transcript.
Thank you, Phil. The Gallant government wants Ottawa to increase its share of the federal nominee program for the province to help increase immigration. From my perspective, the reception seems to be fairly cool so far. There's a lot of discussion about retention problems. It's one thing to get a person to immigrate, another one to get them to stay in a riding like Beausejour and not go to Toronto or Vancouver. So what could the federal government do under your watch to help improve retention in a riding like Beauséjour, in a province like New Brunswick? And feel free to weigh in on the possible role that temporary foreign workers could play.
Okay, great question. Thanks a lot for everybody to be putting this on. First of all, Rogers, Times, and The Bend for bringing this together. Hard question. I think we have a shortage with doctors right now. I think we could bring in some of these refugees who are obviously in a medical profession. We can fast track a program right away to bring some of these people over, fill in some of these shortages that we obviously need, and fill that hole right away.
Mr. LeBlanc.
Merci, Monsieur Allain, and thank you, Rod, for that important question. You touched on three elements. The temporary foreign worker program, from our perspective, had been abused by the Conservative government. They tripled the number of temporary foreign workers in Canada. We saw stories of Canadians losing their jobs in Toronto and in the West in the case of temporary foreign workers replacing them. We think there's a role for temporary foreign workers in the local economy, particularly in the seafood processing sector, in agriculture. It can be used well to, in fact, protect Canadian jobs. Your question about immigration retention is also critical. It's a great resource and a great economic potential for our communities. We think that there's a great opportunity to bring more immigrants to New Brunswick, expand the provincial nominee program, and offer proper settlement services and cultural services to keep them in our communities.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Madame Boudreau.
Thank you. When I was going through the Beausejour riding for the election, I discovered that the foreign workers program, especially in the fisheries sector and agriculture sector, is there. However, when it comes to how long they could stay, is only 8 months, when the actual fact that they need the workers a lot longer than that. And I think our foreign policy on that is flawed. We truly need to look at that, make sure that the on the level of what they need in the communities are based on foreign policies that bring that to that level. It is true that the foreign credential recognition program is flawed, and I think we need to look at that sincerely.
Thank you. Madame Bastarache.
Thank you. I have to say that I do agree to an extent with some of the parties here. It is true, it is an 8-month stay, and it needs to be looked at. We need to be able to extend that based on our needs for our workers. In order to retain them here, though, what we do not need to do is increase taxes and payroll and EI premiums. By increasing that, we're not going to retain our employees or our immigrants. We're going to be they're going to be wanting to relocate, to move away, based on what they're going to be paying out.
Thank you. Any points that you want to add after this first question? Any?
Well, perhaps, Gilles, there's an open conversation on this issue, and it's an important one. I think that Canada, frankly, suffered internationally a very bad reputation and a damage to our reputation when the Harper government was so slow to bring more refugees from Syria and Iraq to Canada. I think it's one area, we saw that in the TVA French debate where Mr. Mulcair and Mr. Trudeau were in complete agreement. Canada needs to do more with these millions of people that are suffering both in Syria and Iraq and millions more in the neighboring countries like Turkey in refugee camps. We think the parties should have worked together in a nonpartisan way, in the spirit of an election, to show hospitality and generosity to these people. And I hope and believe that a future Liberal government will be much more proactive than Mr. Harper did in trying to scare people about a security context which we don't believe should stop us from carrying out our basic responsibilities.
It is true that we think as the NDP that the initiative about the Syrian refugees is on the table, that needs to be addressed. We don't hope, we think we will be able to bring those 46,000 people that the United Nations has asked Canadians to bring to the forefront. I think they are a great number in there. If we can integrate them into our community, that it is going to be crucial for our immigration system to at least give them some work with the credentials like we've spoken to a few minutes ago, to make sure that the right people are in place at the right locations. And yes, there are immigrations that come into small communities, but we actually had in Sackville about 2 weeks ago a community, over 125 people that sat down and talked about immigration and how we can bring refugees, and even if it would be possible to have some families come to Sackville area. But we also figured that, you know, we could be doing stuff on a local level, knowing in the fact that maybe they would be going to Montreal or other locations. As Canadians, that's what we're about. We want to make sure that they feel at home.
Thank you. Well, we have to go to the next question. My apologies. Time is up on that question. Next question, Tara Clow from Acadia Broadcasting.
We have a large number of seniors in our province. We found that out recently, and with statistics, and also we also have an aging population right across the country. So what will your parties be doing to help relieve some of those financial stresses of seniors?
We'll start with Mr. LeBlanc.
Thanks, Gilles, and thanks, Tara. You're absolutely right. Seniors' issues are of primal importance to people in our riding. Liberals have proposed 3 concrete measures: increasing the guaranteed income supplement for the most vulnerable seniors by $920 a year. That's a 10% increase, effective immediately. That's twice what the NDP were offering. The other thing we think the Government of Canada should do is sit down with provinces like New Brunswick, because you're right. We read in Rod's newspaper this week, New Brunswick has the highest proportion of seniors per capita of any other province. So that represents a huge demographic challenge for home care services, for the provision of adequate health care services. We think the Government of Canada should have sat down with premiers like the Premier of New Brunswick and other premiers to say, look, if you've got a specific demographic challenge, the Government of Canada has to step up and do more and not simply run away from funding health care, as Mr. Harper has done.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Madame Boudreau.
The same for the NDP. We will boost the guaranteed supplement by $400 million and expand the raising tens of thousands of the poorest seniors out of poverty. We'll work with the provinces to expand the long-term and home care services. That's a priority for our government. That will be there by October 20th. We will reinstate door-to-door delivery too. There's absolutely different areas that we're in senior moments that we need to address too. We need to invest in affordable housing. We have left, the Canadian public, I guess, left a government Harper in place and made the seniors more and more vulnerable. We have to work harder. We have to bring them to the higher level. We have to get them out of poverty. Seniors right now are making tough decisions. We need to even invest in what we call the National Farmer Care Program. We make sure that seniors can live day by day without thinking, am I going to eat or am I going to pay my electric bill? The cost of living is way too high in New Brunswick compared to what the income is coming.
Thank you, Madame Boudreau. Candidate Bastarache.
Thank you. The Conservative Party has provided us with income splitting for the benefit of our Canadians. We have invested to help cover the cost for those who wish to continue to live in their homes. We gave tax renovation breaks and tools to assist them with the cost of renovating the upkeep of their homes. We have invested in assisting with those who suffer from Alzheimer's and dementia. Our seniors are our parents, they're our grandparents, they're our family. They deserve to be treated fairly and with respect. My utmost concern as a past social development employee is the front-end work that I did. Our lack of nursing homes and our lack of workers to evaluate the needs of our seniors. Some of our seniors are placed in hospitals. They have nowhere else to go. Some of them stay there to the end. That's very sad. I want to work for our seniors regarding the lack of nursing homes. The waiting list, as we know, is immense. We have to look at working on that. It's an urgency. While campaigning, I had a senior woman tell me
Thank you, Candidate Bastarache.
Thank you.
That's it for that time period. Candidate King.
Thank you very much. It's true, we have an aging population, and when we have to look at the cost. What is costing our province a lot of money right now? And it's definitely the pharmaceutical care. I think we're all on board with this, with the pharmaceuticals being out of whack. That it's all for profit, and I think we're all in agreement that we can save the Canadian people a lot of money. You can research this on your own, but your Trans-Pacific Partnership is going to threaten that. So you have to ask ourselves why this deal is being done behind our backs during an election period. Yeah, we want to save people $11 billion a year, but can we? We're also on board with keeping people at home. It's a way to save money. 1/20th of the cost of putting somebody in a hospital bed. How can we do this? It needs infrastructure. We need to invest now, but we don't need to borrow it. Like if you're taking monies to put in highways when it should be going to our seniors, then we're going to be short, and our math has to we have to make up some money somehow. And austerity measures right now is not the time to do it.
Thank you, candidate. 2 minutes now to discuss this broader issue. Candidate Bastarache.
I'd like to bring up an issue here. Maybe Dominic, you could answer this one for me. David Dahlward had committed $9.2 million to a seniors home in St. Anthony for 30 extra beds. Now, from my understanding, you were co-chair on the provincial elections. And I'm just wondering, did you know that? Because as of yesterday, we've been informed that that project has been canceled. And how can we cancel such a project when we know these beds are in need?
Certainly, senior care is something that's important to all of us. Mm-hmm. We think it's very destructive that Mr. Harper has refused to sit down with provincial governments, including the previous Alward Conservative government, to discuss funding for health care and seniors issues in a way that frankly would have allowed New Brunswick to massively invest in improving the quality of care. One thing, and that I find a bit distressing, is that your leader continues to say that the Liberal Party is against income splitting for seniors. I know you raised that, and I'm glad you did, because it's an opportunity for me to say to everybody very clearly, the Liberal Party of Canada will maintain income splitting, pension income splitting for seniors. Justin Trudeau has said it over and over again. He said it in the House of Commons when I was sitting next to him. So you shouldn't be fooled by the misleading advertising from people like Pierre Poilievre, the Human Resources Minister, or Mr. Harper, when they continue to spread lies about the Liberal platform. We think it's unfortunate if their own platform is so weak. They should focus on improving their own offering to Canadians, and instead not spending time inventing things about other parties. And to be fair to the NDP and the Green Party, we're not alone in having the Conservatives invent elements of our platform that simply don't exist.
I understand that, Dominic, but I guess I didn't really get an answer to my question, because I asked you clearly. You were on a co-chair on the provincial election, so this is something you must have known of up front. Secondly, and I understand what you're saying with the income splitting, but what about with the Liberals and the promises, the seniors, how they were stressed out for 6 months about taking their savings and taking their investments, yet Brian Gallant comes out and says, we've changed our minds. I just seem to find it funny, and I think many people do that. It's the day right after Trudeau was here in our backyard. So maybe you could tell me about that one.
What's funny, Anne, actually, is that you're running as a candidate in a federal election.
I understand
and
that.
you seem deeply concerned about provincial issues. Your former MLA, Claude Williams, lost his seat in your hometown in Saint-Antoine. That issue, in terms of his electability, was settled last fall. We're focused on using the federal government to help seniors and help the government of New Brunswick provide better services and better care for seniors, something that Mr. Harper's failed to do for 10 years.
To me today is a little bit hilarious because last year during the provincial election we said the same thing. I was in Memramcook when we talked about the 4 projects that we're going to get ahead in senior care. And again, we're going flip-flop between the Liberals and Conservatives. Whoever stops, whoever gets elected, that's where the senior cares are. I'm very proud of NDP with senior care strategy.
On that
and
question right now because we're running out of time on that particular question. We turn to Rod Allen from the Times and Transcript for the next question.
Thank you, Gilles. In terms of adding value to the fishery on the Strait Shore to create jobs, Beauséjour has had its successes and it's had its failures. We've had a pretty good smoked fish industry. There are people in the Scoodic Industrial Park working on value-added fish. We've had our failures too. We've had 2 attempts to build a factory that would make something out of seashells for an Asian market. So it's a mixed bag. How do we get more consistent with in terms of adding value just to the fishery alone? Keep in context that we have a new free trade agreement with the EU. We have all sorts of Asian markets opening up for seafood. Of course we have a COA, but what other programs would your government bring in to help add value to the fishery?
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Response first, Madame Boudreau.
I actually had quite a few discussions with the fishery industry lately, and one of my concerns, I guess, is in relation to their investments for technology. They want to go out of they want to go forward in their technology and advancement in their fields, but they're also questioning the availability of people working there. They don't have the supply of workers. Why? If New Brunswick is such a high rate of unemployment, why is this possible that industries are there can't advance? I'm actually very proud of this part of the NDP platform where we're going to reinvest our those industries and technologies to make sure that they go off the market. I actually happen to have been on the Moncton International Airport Community Committee where we did discuss that vision in 2007, 2008, and so forth. So I know where we're coming at when you ask that question. It's actually very important to balance out those two. And one of the things that I am very proud is that we will be able to reinvest in those companies that want to have that technology and go move forward.
Thank you. Candidate Bastarache.
Well, we all know this is seasonal work and a concern in our riding, but we have the opportunity to grow our industries. Again, I know we have the 44 free trade agreements, but Europe and China do want to buy our seafood. We provided $20 million for the development of our lobster market alone. Look at our Moncton International Import. We have the facilities required to grow our fishing industry. We need to use it. I will work along with the fishermen and industries to see what we utilize to take every opportunity that we have, allowing us to create jobs and grow our fishing industry. I've spoken to our local fishermen and plant workers, and they are frustrated. They're telling me that for so long, they are not being helped. This is their life. They also have families to provide for and bills to pay. Some have had to change their careers and to no longer live on fishing. Dominic, you've had 15 years. What do our fishermen and our fishing industries have to show for it? From what they say, it's not much. I've been advised by the fishermen towards the Capway area, there's a silver cod license that they cannot get, PEI Nova Scotia has, in our waters. Why?
Thank you, Candidate Bastarache. Candidate King.
All right, look, we need something to export, and we have the technology right now. I got party leaders from both of these two people coming here to Beauséjour saying that we can do EI reforms to help them with temporary supplementation. We have the technology, the manpower, and all the resources right now to put people in work full-time, year-round. Technology, that is how we're going to do this. Engineering, the field of engineering is how we're going to deliver it. We have a problem with unsustainable resources right now. We need to export. Food is what we need to do. We want to deliver a product around the world. Food, local food, and we can do onshore fishing now with the technology that we have. We can do all this with federal grant money put people back into work, all of these little communities. The future of this party is local and sustainable, and we can deliver this, and we will work very hard for that.
Thank you, Candidate King. Candidate LeBlanc.
Merci, Gilles. Rod, your question originally was about value added in the fish processing sector and the fish harvesting sector. It's a constant challenge, because one of the realities is often the highest price for the product would be to have a live lobster taken off the wharf in your home area of Murray Corner and flown to a restaurant in New York or Boston the next day. So that would bring the highest value for a particular product in some cases. So that's contradicted by obviously the need to provide value-added processing jobs here. I visited a number of the fishing plants over a number of years. The challenge is labor force retention and development. That's why your earlier question on temporary foreign workers, I think, is part of the solution. The other one is to develop new markets. Increasingly, companies like Orion Seafood, Westmoreland Fisheries are telling me that the markets in China are massively, massively underdeveloped. This year, we had a good lobster season. The landings were up. The price was better than it's been in a long time. I hope that that will provide some economic comfort and then allow companies and fishers to focus on new markets and new products to grow the economy.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Now I have an extra 2 minutes to discuss further any points that were made or not made on the fisheries question.
Well, obviously, what needs to be focused on is what type of industry. When we talk about the fisheries and seasonal work, I mean, it's a fresh product, right? We don't have, it's not on a shelf. We have to have the workers on all the time on site. Now, industries say that we can do that type of work 12 months a year if they have the technology to do it. Right now, we already know, like Mr. LeBlanc said, that there is products market out there for it. But we have to also make sure that our the durability of the fishery is sustainable. We have to have that balance. So I truly believe that working together and making sure that the investments are made in the technology sector that will advance the product up to the market, and in combination of how we export. We talked about, I said a few minutes ago, about the international airport, but really what we're talking about is the port of Halifax, where the product is actually going out because it's less cost effective to do it that way. So there is that information that needs to be shared, and we have to make sure that the producers of the or processing plants make sure that that market is available to them.
Gilles, if I may, one of the issues, I agree with Madame Boudreau in the sense that conservation has to be a primary responsibility not only of the industry, but it's sort of a sacred trust that governments have in managing a public resource. I have thought that an increase in the lobster carapace size, the minimum carapace size, would have been a very, very important step. For the first time, fishermen across the southern zone of Zone 25 voted in favor massively of increasing that. Now, Gail Shea, the Conservative Fisheries Minister, refused to move on that issue. The Conservatives aren't interested because there's a pressure in her constituency in Prince Edward Island, a very small group of fishermen. I think that's unfair to the fishers and to the plant workers in the industry on this side of the strait that have frankly taken their responsibility.
Thank you for your answers.
Can we diversify the
I'm sorry, we're done
we're
done on that particular question. We need to move on to the next. Tara Clow from Acadia Broadcasting, 91.9 The Bend. Next question.
Thank you, Gilles. Number of Canadians, there seems to be a decline in the number of Canadians that are actually going out and casting a vote. Is there anything, how do we encourage people to go out and do that, to actually vote for one of the parties?
Thank you, Tara. I think to begin with, the way we need to do that is we need to go out and speak to our youths. Many of them at this time, based on, I think, past beliefs in our government, are feeling frustrated and feeling that we're not there for them. We're not supporting them, so they're wondering why bother voting? What does our voice mean to this? We need to stress to them that they're our next generation, and they're the ones that are going to be bringing in our leaders after us. So we need to educate them and let them know that yes, their voice does count, and yes, we do care.
Thank you. Candidate King.
There was an article in a Globe and Mail that said that prior to 1980, the youth were the ones driving the elections, and now we see the opposite. To engage people is to find people just like me. I'm a young person looking to change a system from within. Anybody can do it, and that means me, him, her, anybody. We are the future of this country. This is our time. This is the future that we are going to embark in the 21st century, and we will work together, all groups together. We need everybody on board, and that means youth organizations and everything. Politics does not have to be boring. It can be cool. Taking part in redeveloping your communities, what is not cooler than that? We can do it all together, and I'm willing to work, and Elizabeth May is also willing to work with members of all of these parties. Know that when you do elect a Green MP, they will work for the constituents, not for the party whip. The youth of this country is going to take over eventually. You might as well embrace it now. We're here to stay.
Thank you, Candidate King. Candidate LeBlanc.
Merci, Gilles. I agree with Mr. King. Elizabeth May and the Green Party have always properly championed a more collaborative House of Commons. It's something that I've had the privilege to work on as the Liberal House Leader with Madame May, so I think you're correct to identify that. Tara's question also, I think, begs the question, if parties are not speaking about issues that actually resonate with voters, we shouldn't be surprised that they become more and more disengaged. My colleagues referred to young people, and that's obviously a chronic and serious concern. 35–40% of people under the age of 24 may participate in a federal election. That's an alarming statistic, and it's getting worse. But it also is a problem with other demographic groups. Aboriginal people don't vote in significant numbers. I think it's often because the parties have failed to speak to issues that directly concern them. And the best way to get people to vote, Tara, is to actually offer something that will improve and change their lives in a sincere way.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Madame Boudreau.
I look at it a little differently. We had conservative and liberal governments for many, many years that got so disengaged with the population that that's why they're not voting. It doesn't necessarily mean because of certain issues that stick to them. Everything concerning from the healthcare, education, work-related, it's always been around. That's what they need. That's what they're looking for leadership. We have to engage with the politicians, the current ones, have to engage with the community. If there's one thing that I've always done, no matter what level, if it's nonprofit volunteering or as a municipal councillor or anything, is to engage with the people, to make me realize what's important to them. And it's the same thing in return. It's to make sure that we can, even if we disagree, we can inform them on why we're making certain decisions. And that's how they get engaged. It's not by making decisions on a whim basis and then telling them why we decided in a very political way. We have to make sure that they come to us and we go to them on a constant basis.
Thank you, Madame Boudreau. An extra 2 minutes to discuss this issue.
Gilles, if I can, Madame Bastarache referred to engaging young people and the importance of motivating young people to vote. I was a bit distressed to find out that this evening, actually, at Mount Allison University, the only campus in our constituency, they've organized some weeks ago an all-candidates debate at the Brunton Auditorium. And I was told on Friday that apparently Madame Bastarache is not going to that debate. So I found that surprising to hear her talk about engaging young people. She's got a great opportunity tonight at 8 p.m. for 2 hours. There'll be hundreds of students. It's a well-attended event, and frankly, it's an interesting and useful exchange with a group of young voters. I think if she was sincerely interested in engaging young people, Kevin and Hélène and I would see her tonight in Sackville at the Brunton Auditorium.
I'd like to reply to that. Unfortunately, Mr. LeBlanc, I had prior commitments, and when I make promises, I intend to keep them. I've been involved in schools. I've been in local community schools that I've been personally invited to. Many of them have invited me back a second time around to speak to students. Went to Bonner Law. You were there. You know I was there. We had the chance to. Like I said, though, because of the timing and the date of this, I did have prior commitments. I did advise the Mount Allison University, and I don't intend to break promises. Thank you.
Well,
Listen, I want to jump in on this. Young people are generally known as leftists. You know, they want free tuition, and we're going to give them to it by 2020. That's why we want to engage them, because we see their value as the future. You can't, prior to 1980, like I was mentioning, the programs that they wanted cost money. I wasn't engaged in politics then. I was only 3, but but we see that there's a definite disconnect with the youth, and we have to reconnect. And it's not like Mr. Dominic said here. It's not just the youth; it's the First Nations as well. We got to get everybody on board here. It's a time to redevelop our democracy.
Thank you. That's the end for that question. We'll go on to the next. Rod Allen of Moncton's Times and Transcript.
Okay, thank you, Gilles. This is probably not fair, but I have to put this in a nutshell. As far as the constant, unending story of employment insurance reform, changes, improvements, Conservatives want to, in my view, their main thing is to decrease premiums substantially. The Liberals would decrease premiums less substantially, but also they want to expand eligibility. I'd ask you all to discuss the merits of those two fairly distinct positions, but in the context of a long-term desire in New Brunswick to break away from Ottawa, to be an independent, to be less reliant on federal money. So please tell us your thoughts on EI reform.
Thank you. We'll start with candidate King.
Okay, great question. I got one party who wants a limit, and then I got another party who wants to increase premiums. I think it doesn't need to be an umbrella. I think it should be taken in a position base. You know, if it's a seasonal worker, they should know that, you know, they're going to be more apt to use these benefits. So they might, in my opinion, they should pay a little bit more in premiums. But we ought to look at the bigger picture, and the picture is to try to get them off of EI. We want people to have year-long employment, and that means retraining. You know, just giving somebody a career in a seasonal job is a Band-Aid, in my opinion. We can get people off of EI. All this money would be not given away to the program. We could save it and allocate it to other programs. I think we ought to look at how to diversify the program so that it's never under an umbrella. Every little position can be changed in a way that it benefits the position. Get them off EI.
Thank you, candidate King. Mr. LeBlanc.
Thanks, Gilles. Employment insurance has always been and continues to be an issue that affects the lives of thousands of people in our constituency. Rod Allen is right. It's a balance between reducing premiums because premiums represent a payroll tax, and in certain contexts, in certain situations, it can discourage job creation. But you have to keep the premiums at a sufficient level that you can offer fair benefits to people. Justin Trudeau was with me in Beauséjour on the Tuesday after Labor Day. We specifically wanted to go to the Pays de la Saguenay because it's a good example of a seasonal business. On the Sunday, 2 days before we were there, 150 people were laid off because the tourism season in that part of Kent County had come to an end. So we think that a good first step would be to eliminate 1 week of the waiting period right away, so everybody gets their benefits faster within 3 weeks, and instead of missing 2 weeks, the famous waiting period, there's only 1 week gone, and we would immediately remove the 910-hour eligibility rule for new entrants or re-entrants, which has in fact penalized many workers.
Thank you, candidate LeBlanc. Madame Boudreau.
I think what we have to do is not peg the rural part of Beauséjour with the urban part of Beauséjour. That's one thing for sure. We have to acknowledge that our seasonal workers, there's 3 sectors: agriculture, fisheries, and tourism, which is very important, all 3. And then we have to not penalize when there's no work. And how do we do that? And we think the NDP is by decreasing the amount of hours to 360. We want them to evaluate the best 12 weeks when they do work for their income, because there have been cuts. And unfortunately, the Conservative government has always cut and cut and cut, and they've made the criteria so strict that now that they don't even apply anymore because they're not eligible, and that's when we turn into poverty. So that's the part that we would want to work. However, we do acknowledge that the people that do work seasonal, maybe there's an opportunity there to go to a different industry where there is seasonal work, but in a different area, maybe in the wintertime.
Thank you. Candidate Bastarache.
Thank you. The EI system continues to be here for Canadians who lose their job at no fault of their own. The Conservative Party has already committed by 2017 to lower the EI premiums to 1.49 rather than the 1.65 by the Liberals. So I think it's still a little lower than what the Liberals are offering you. I will work on lowering the waiting period. I do agree with Dominic LeBlanc on that issue. The 2-week waiting period, I agree, 1 week waiting period. Unfortunately, like others, many out there, I've known to be on EI due to the loss of job. The waiting period 2 weeks, but then the EI payments come in 2, 6, 8 weeks later. Okay, it's not an instant. Our families, we have bills to pay, we have mortgages to pay, we have food to put on our table. We do have to look at that, and we have to fix that issue, because 4 to 8 weeks waiting for that first 2-week waiting period to come in is not acceptable to me. I will help to find a way to simplify that transition. We are not, like I said, the 4 to 6 weeks is not acceptable. I want to work with businesses. I want to find out what we can do to help them create more jobs in the riding. Again, like Hélène said, I agree that although it is
Thank you, candidate Bastarache. We're at the end of that
I think this
block
comes
of
back
time.
to-
We now have that 2 minutes to go back.
Perfect. I think it comes back to my our Green Party initiative of retraining and using technology. Seasonal work, can be easily supplemented with new industry, with new technology. New grant money can be done. I know it's not a popular topic here, Rod, I'm sorry, but we have to phase into a new generation. The 21st century embodies sustainable energy, pretty much sustainable communities. We ought to reinvest in the people when we really mean it. Reinvest in their skills, new skills, and get them off EI. And that means, and in some cases, if they're really, work for only 4 months, then they have to find work for 8 months. And if we can find them work for 12 months, that supplement that. And students need work too. They can always work in the summertime when they're not in school.
I agree with Mr. King in the sense that new technologies and retraining or offering better training opportunities for workers is something that I would hope we would all agree with. Where I disagree a little bit is certain sectors, and I think Madame Boudreau properly identified 3 of them. I would just add forestry and construction to the list of the 3 that Madame Boudreau identified. They are necessarily seasonal industries. People aren't lifting lobster traps on a frozen Northumberland Strait. The Michaud farm in Bucktouche, their strawberries in January aren't as nice as July. So they will necessarily be seasonal, and I think employment insurance has for a long time offered a basic protection for people who work in seasonal industries and can't then transition to some magic job that doesn't exist for the 6 or 7 months or 5 months of the year when their particular sector is closed.
But these greenhouses can be done year-round now with the new technology. We can pump money into this new sector and really, really champion this. I mean, if we can feed ourselves first and flood the market with cheap, inexpensive, clean food, which is a great Green Party value of ours, we will move into our sustainable food, and then we can ship food and export it all over the world, and there is our new market right there.
Thank you, candidates, on that question. Now invite Tara Clow for the next question. Tara Clow is with Acadia Broadcasting, 91.9 The Bend.
Thanks, Gilles. Wanted to talk about parents and children a little bit. Myself, I have 2 children, and I know the difficulties, financial strains involved in that. What are you proposing for help for parents in the way of tax credits, or what else can you suggest?
First response, Mr. LeBlanc.
Thanks, Gilles. Tara, your question, frankly, is I think highlights one of the elements of the Liberal platform of which I'm most enthusiastic. Justin Trudeau proposed way back in June that we would cancel income splitting for families, not for seniors, but for families. That's a $2.4 billion tax break that benefits 14% of Canadians, including those who make $233,000 a year, who benefit the most. So we think that people who make over $200,000 a year don't deserve those kind of benefits. They don't need them. And instead, we would create a more generous, tax-free benefit for families with children. So any family that has an income of less than $150,000 will receive a monthly tax-free child benefit from a Liberal government, not a series of tax deductions that people can apply for or represent less money than they pretend. And we'll do that by giving less to those that need it least.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Madame Boudreau.
Well, one thing that we don't agree at currently is with the Conservative government, what they did when it comes to giving benefits for a child at the house. Because at the end of the line, they're going to pay it back in tax at some point. So that we would definitely look at for sure. We want to create 1 million quality childcare spaces in Canada where parents pay no more than $15 a day. That's a huge investment when it comes to families. Little things that we have in our platform, of course, with the time limited that we have that we can't really dig into, is example ATM fees. I mean, it's appalling to see how many fees that we pay a month. we would have a cap on a 50 cents per transaction. I mean, right now you can go and get $5 of transaction fee for just one. I think those are little items that will benefit for the family and students and youths also. We also have an initiative when it comes to affordable housing. We have to make sure that the low income to medium income housing families have a benefit to make sure that they are not paying too much. And I think that's an important issue too.
Thank you, Candidate Boudreau. Your time is up on that for your response. Candidate Bastarache.
Thank you. I'm glad this is a subject that we are addressing because I myself was a single parent. I had numerous of kids living in, I fostered as well. The universal tax benefit, when that came in, it's something that I needed at the time to be able to make ends meet. I want to say that when we're being penalized on our income taxes, not once was I ever penalized. I've never had to pay back into it, although we had our deductions, so I have to disagree with that. The income splitting for families, that I do go for as well, because I want to say over $200,000 a year, with the way the Liberals want to increase the their taxes, keep in mind that it may sound good, but what's not coming out of that is who here makes over $200,000 a year in Beauséjour. You may be looking at our doctors and our specialists. That being said and done, their pays are going to be getting cut almost 60%. How are we going to keep them here with them losing the money? As for the daycare, I think the Conservative stresses it's the parents that are the experts. We know where we want our child to be, and I think it's our decision to make.
Thank you, Candidate Bastarache. Candidate King.
As we diversify our economy into the 21st century, it is important that we look into the renewable sector. The energy, the old sector, we believe, the Green Party of Canada, that we can help families with a fee and dividend program, a one-time, once per year a fee for families. You know, when an emitter, a carbon emitter, pays up at $30 a ton to be distributed amongst the people, I think this will help us a little bit more. We also have an affordable housing program that you can look at the greenparty.ca website. We believe that the division of wealth is going too far. People are not able to afford food. People are not able to afford affordable housing anymore. And that range is getting broader and broader. We need to look at why it's costing so much for basic necessities like food and housing. We have plans to eliminate poverty. We got to eliminate this. We have to help people out right now. Yeah, go on.
Thank you, Candidate King. Candidates, you have 2 minutes to discuss further.
Well, I certainly know what it is when we have families that can't make ends meet. And most of it is the working poor. And I have 2 grown children with grandchildren that are going through that every day. And I think our family plan, when it comes to the NDP and the $15 maximum per day, would greatly benefit them. It is true that some will never pay the extra income tax because of that benefit, because they're under the poverty line probably, or they're really on the minimal level of income. But the general, when we looked at the cost of the middle to low family income, they will be paying. And that's when we start spending money on a monthly basis, because we think we have that, but it's really I'm losing my thought, but it is really a smoking gun situation where you think you have more money, but at the end of the year they tax you on it. And that's a clear-cut case in this situation. And I truly believe that the NDP has all the values and is putting forward, even when it comes to the education. Example, when we talked about EI, they want to use the surplus in the EI program to put back into the economic and give corporate donations, I call them, because that's what it basically is. It's out of our tax system. So we want to stop that. We want to use those types of programs to make sure that they benefit the families. If we want to invest in the EI program, into paternal or maternal care, that's where we have to go into. We have to stop giving big corporations our taxes and start putting it back into the families when it comes to even health care. We've got great programs when it comes to the youth and mental and care and medication. I was explaining to a group of children in Saint-Antoine. They asked me, why are we not giving everything that we can?
Gilles, I thought this was an exchange between candidates. Hélène has now run the 2 minutes right out.
Well, the candidates had the right to fill that 2 minutes. You had the right to jump in at any time.
So you'd want us to interrupt? I would have thought as moderator you should have perhaps, I mean, I don't think we, yeah. I don't think interrupting Jill is the...
Do we have another minute or two on this topic?
No, we don't. We're sorry, we need to go to the next question. That's the end of that one. I now ask Rod Allen to ask the final question of this afternoon before we come to the end of this afternoon.
Thank you, Gilles. I'll be brief. Free trade is good. I hope everyone agrees with that. But it has problems. It leads to problems. Lately, dairy farmers in New Brunswick are screaming bloody murder over the latest free trade agreements with the U.S. I realize there's not a lot of dairy in Beauséjour, but there is substantial agriculture. How do you protect farmers in your riding with, if you concede that freer and freer trade across the globe is inevitable?
Thank you. First answer, Madame Boudreau.
I think we're talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership at this time. And what is very important is that right now we don't have the information of what's being targeted, what's been discussed. I think the Conservative at this point did a very disservice to this country when they're not partnering with the other NDP party and the Liberal Party and the Green Party on this. We actually can't come here today and say what's on the table. We have no clue if it's in the best interest for Canada. So that is very, very concerning at this point, because it's a major issue for Beauséjour, and I don't think we're there to even talk about this because of all the secrecy that's going on. So at that point, I mean, there's really a concerning issue. Is it in the best interest for Canadians? Is it in the best interest of Beauséjour? I think we have to move it forward and make sure that for the NDP, we will not at any time after this election, if it's signed, go into an agreement and move forward if it's not in the best interest of Canadians.
Thank you, Candidate Boudreau. Madame Bastarache.
Thank you. We all know that we do live in a global economic and that we cannot isolate ourselves from the G7. I come from a farm. I've lived on a farm all my life, and I agree. We need to look, and I'm sure Mr. Harper, the Conservative Party, we're out there to look for the Canadians first. If we have the product, we're going to utilize it, but if we are a lack of and we need to import, we need to do free trading to get and grow together, I'm all for that. We need to work with our trading partners if we want Canada to be a leading company in economic growth and job creations, which is very important. We need job creations. Canada has a strong negotiating team, and their interest is first and utmost for us, the Canadians.
Thank you, Candidate Bastarache. Candidate King.
Capitalism is the only way to create wealth. We understand that. We're on board with that. We're a capitalist, also a great society. Trans-Pacific Partnership and NAFTA have dumped a lot of products into our markets and made a lot of people wealthy. Everything that we own is probably made from another country. Where's our manufacturing sector? It's dead. It's gone. We don't have one. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is going to eliminate us from putting together a pharmacare bill. We can save a lot of Canadians money, and this bill, this international bill, which will hurt us. And I'm telling you right now, we're not going to be able to, if this is signed, we're not going to be able to go back and then sign it. It's going to be an international court. It's going to be drug along for years. It's not going to help us. C-51 is about Trans-Pacific Partnership, and I'm telling you right now, this is about economical interest, for you to not be able to protest an economical deal. I mean, the farmers, the milk farmers, are going to have to be subsidized 10% of their losses to bring in. Without the same reciprocity, we're not going to be able to sell our milk elsewhere.
Thank you. Candidate LeBlanc.
Merci, Gilles. Rod, your question about the Trans-Pacific Partnership is important. I don't want to disagree with a senior journalist, but there are significant dairy farms in our riding. My cousins operate the Willie LeBlanc and Son Farm in Lourdes, in Memramcook. It's a massive, modern dairy farm. They share the concern of the dairy producers and the egg producers right across the country. I agree with Madame Boudreau. Mr. Harper negotiates in secret. He doesn't share with sectors of the economy that frankly stand potentially to receive a significant setback. He doesn't share with them what's on the table, what he's discussing. We worry about an exemption for cultural industries also. Artists I've spoken to are concerned that increasingly these trade agreements can affect cultural industries. As a general rule, I agree with what you said at the beginning, Rod. Trade agreements improve the prosperity of both countries if they're done properly, or of all those participants that are done properly. We think the Trans-Pacific Partnership is an important opportunity for Canada, but we don't trust Mr. Harper in the end to protect sectors that have traditionally always been protected.
Thank you. We have a quick 60 seconds on this question. before we go to closing statements. Any rebuttals, any additional information?
Well, if I can, Gilles, the NDP have largely been resistant to most trade agreements. You've seen in the national leaders debate, Mr. Mulcair says, oh, I think he voted for one with Honduras, which was hardly earth-shattering for the Canadian economy, that we signed an agreement with Honduras or Jordan, where the trade, I think, is probably less than it would be between two Canadian provinces in a typical week. The Liberal Party has always believed that done properly, these trade agreements represent a huge opportunity for Canadians. And there are businesses...
As consumers, though, as consumers, we don't have the population to export like they do. Like, we don't have the 300 and some million people to dump products into into their markets. We have 30 million people, 35 million people. We have to protect our industry first.
And if I would speak on the NDP's behalf, because I was not there yet to discuss that, is that we may be doing our due diligence and doing our work when it comes to making sure that it's in the Canadian best interest.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your responses. That's it for time on the questions. Certainly thank Rod Allen and Tara Clow for asking the questions this afternoon. We'll now move into the closing statements part because I did skip a part at the beginning which we had agreed. I will start by asking the Green Party candidate Kevin King, and then we'll do the reverse order, the order that we had agreed upon to begin with. So I will ask...
so you want me to do my intro?
The closing statements.
Okay.
Kevin King of the Green Party.
Okay, I'm the proud candidate of the Green Party of Canada. I believe in a lot of things. One thing is for sure, I as member of the Green Party, believe that by putting your environment first, we'll have a favorable environment first, we will have a stable economy. We can't do it the other way around. We can't build an economy out of a bad environment. So the Green Party believes that we have to put the environment first. While most of the candidates across the country are talking about economy first, this is a diversion. We have to think about climate change. This is a real topic. We've been seeing the signs since 1980. Our party is born right after seeing these signs because we have to put the environment first. I believe in a lot of other things, not just the environmentalists. We're not a bunch of hippies. We do love nature. We do love our country and our communities as well. We're very much patriots. And I am a patriot. And I believe C-51 threatens us because it limits our voice against something called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. To be able to disable your voice against something that you disagree, you know, there's a clause inside here that says that if there's lost profits of an international company doing business under this agreement, then they can sue us in another court. You know, this is threatening to us. We could lose billions. So I think we have to look at that. And the way we can get out of our economical pinch is a few things. Local sustainable energy sectors, food sectors, technology, I keep bringing it back, but it's the key. And I believe that we can put an army of people to plug the energy holes inside homes. We can put a lot of carpenters to work.
Thank you, Candidate King. Liberal Party of Canada, candidate Dominic LeBlanc.
Thank you, Gilles, and thank you to Rogers TV for organizing, I think, this interesting exchange with my colleague candidates. Thank you to you, the viewers at home, who took the time, hopefully, to listen to a portion of our conversation. We think the 19th of October represents an opportunity for voters in Beausejour and right across the country to choose real change. We think after 10 years of Mr. Harper's government, whether it's anti-democratic practices, whether it's ignoring the real plight of working Canadians and middle-class Canadians, we think Canadians are increasingly looking for an alternative. And we've laid out a costed, responsible, detailed plan to provide real change. It starts with a very significant investment in infrastructure to improve roads and bridges and ports and harbors, to create jobs immediately, not in 4 years or 6 years like Mr. Mulcair wants to do, immediately. We think we should cut taxes for middle-class Canadians. My colleague, Madame Bastarache, distorted our tax plan. We want to increase the tax by 4% on the income of people who make more than $200,000, just that portion of over $200,000, so that we can reduce taxes dollar for dollar for people who make less than $90,000. And we want to significantly invest $920 a year additional support for the guaranteed income supplement, to recognize that many seniors are struggling. Those are real options for positive change. Justin Trudeau, I think, can be one of Canada's great prime ministers, and I ask for your support on the 19th of October.
Thank you, Candidate LeBlanc. New Democratic Party candidate Hélène Boudreau.
Dear friends, I think the NDP can balance the books when it comes to the economy and take care of family values. 90 seconds is all it takes to summarize the political situation in Brunswick. The Liberal teammates Gilles LeBlanc have chosen to attack seniors and have chosen to cut education to our children. They have taken that money and have given it to big profitable corporations. We deserve a lot better. Today I'm offering you something real, something better. I know I can make things better for you. Why? Because I was born and raised here, and because I played an active role in the development of Beauséjour. Because my family, which has always been Beauséjour, is just like yours. Lost jobs, unplanned teen pregnancies, long travel distance to work, to help our seniors, parents, and grandchildren, showing respect and giving them the hope for a better future, in spite of the Liberal team, Gilles, LeBlanc, and their cuts. Because my work as a registered nurse for over 30 years has allowed me to assist your families in sickness, in healing, and unfortunately sometimes in death. This is why I can represent you in Ottawa. I chose the NDP to do so because the party offers solutions for families like mine and yours. Let's give ourselves a chance. Let's make the NDP more pertinent in Beauséjour. On October 19th, vote Hélène Boudreau, MP, for Beauséjour.
Thank you, candidate Boudreau. Candidate Anne Bastarache of the Conservatives.
Thank you. Firstly, yes, my name is Anne Bastarache, and I'm from St. Antoine, Kent County. When I decided to run as the Conservative candidate for Beauséjour riding, it became very clear to me, like many of you, what we need is someone like us, someone that struggled, someone that wants to work for us. What we don't need is part-time MPs, and what we don't need is MPs that want to focus their leadership and their ambitions tirelessly on a friend. We need them to focus on us. What I will promise the citizens of Beauséjour riding, one thing, is to work for you. The Liberals have had us under their control, believe it or not, since 1925. Beauséjour, 1925. We've had the Liberals we've been under their control, except with the exception of Angela Voiture from 97 to 2000. So for the past 82 years, the Liberals have taken us for granted. We've been pushed aside and we've been silenced. Through this, Dominic was an MP Beauséjour riding for the past 15 years. Ask yourselves, are we better now than we were 15 years ago? We know right now we're being told we are the poorest region in Canada. Again, under the Liberals' control, 82 years seems like a long time. On October 19th, we Beauséjour riding have it in our power. We have it in our power to make the change, to stop being controlled, to stop being pushed aside, and to stop being silenced. If you put your trust and faith in me, I promise I will work for you as a full-time MP and to be your voice that we need.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That wraps it up for this afternoon. Thank you very much for watching at home. Rogers TV, this special broadcast. We hope that you'll go out in force on October 19th and help choose your next Member of Parliament for Beauséjour. Thank you for watching this afternoon.